the looking glass of history in Afghanistan. The reason for the US's failure is no different from that of the Soviets. India too can hardly impact the ground situation. Mikhail Gorbachev became General Secretary of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union in March 1985. By then Soviet forces had been in Afghanistan for over 5 years. They had failed to successfully combat the mujahideen groups, most of whom were based in Pakistan. The mujahideen received crucial support from the United States, but the critical factor was their Pakistan base. Secure with the US fully behind it, Pakistan knew that the Soviet Union would not risk crossing the Duran line to take armed action on Pakistani territory. In his insightful book, The Great Game in Afghanistan, Rajiv Gandhi, General Zia and the Unending War, Kulol Bhattacharjee records that immediately after becoming the Soviet Union's supreme leader, Mr. Gorbachev had met the Pakistani dictator in Moscow. He had warned him that Moscow would ensure that Pakistan faces the consequences of backing the mujahideen. Zia was unfazed by the threat because he knew that the new Soviet leader was posturing. From the USSR to the US. 32 years later, the wheel of history had turned. It was the United States which was bogged down in Afghanistan. For 16 years it had, despite a military surge, failed to quell the Taliban insurgency even though the group merely had the support of Pakistan. The reason for the US's failure was no different from that of the Soviets. It could not carry the war into the territory of Pakistan, now armed with nuclear weapons. Destabilizing such a state would have incalculable consequences. Now, a new US leader, President Donald Trump, announcing his Afghanistan policy in August 2017, said, "We can no longer be silent about Pakistan's safe havens for terrorist organizations, the Taliban, and other groups that pose a threat to the region and beyond. Pakistan has much to gain from partnering with our effort in Afghanistan. It has much to lose by continuing to harbor our criminals and terrorists." https://bit.ly/3figilp. He followed this with a tweet on New Year's Day 2018 accusing Pakistan of lies and deceit. For some time, the Pakistani leadership was concerned by the mercurial Trump but then realized that his were empty threats, signs of the US's frustration. It continued with its Afghan policy as before. A thread in these approaches. Within a year of taking over, Mr. Gorbachev was convinced that the Soviet Union's Afghan quest was futile. In February 1986 he told the Communist Party that Afghanistan had become a bleeding wound. He now decided to prepare for the retreat of the Soviet forces. His aim was to have an orderly withdrawal. He also abandoned the idea of leaving behind a socialist government and sought to have a broad